Don't let yourself get attached to anything you are not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat if you feel the heat around the corner.
Welcome to Film Strip.
Who?
These podcasts will be spoiler-filled as we discuss the plots, characters, and themes of the films.
But I don't have to sell this, and you know it, because this air sells itself.
Welcome to Film Strip. I'm Jay.
And I'm Kurt.
And I am Ron.
And this is our review of Heat. No, not the Melissa McCarthy, Sandra Bullock movie. No, not the Burt Reynolds movie. The ones...
Not the documentary on the Miami basketball team.
Indeed. It is the 1995 film starring Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, Tom Sizemore, Ashley Judd, Michael T. Williamson, and Jon Voight. Directed by Michael Mann, released in 95, as we said, on a budget of $60 million, grossed $187 million worldwide, and has a very distinct legacy in action and crime film genre, if you will. Kurt, you and I have been talking about doing this thing for about a year and just trying to find time to get it in between Game of Thrones and best films of 47 and, me doing American Ninja movies and every other thing. And so we were trying to find a time to squeeze it in. And I said, you know what? Let's start off 2015 with a bang. So we're going to do it to kick off 2015 here. And in conversations with Ron, he let me know something very interesting, that he had never seen this film before. So I thought, hey, having somebody brand new to the thing on here, always a good perspective to have. So, Kurt, let's start with you, though. First time you saw Heat and just general impressions and stuff.
Well, first time I saw Heat would have been maybe 2003, 2004. And my opinion of it was, at the time, was... I didn't care for it at all. It was just a case of I was just too young. Like I hated Chinatown, Blade Runner. I just didn't like those movies. Then I watched them again.
Right.
Because the movie that got me to watch Heat again was The Dark Knight. Because in all the interviews for The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan said he's always the first one to say, "Oh yeah, Dark Knight is pretty much almost half a ripoff of Heat." It was just I was echoing Michael Mann in Heat, that whole movie. And thinking about and watched Heat again, thinking about it like, De Niro and Pacino as Batman and the Joker, watching it like that gave me a whole new perspective on the movie, and I fell madly in love with it. And went from, hating the film to adoring it. This is one of the all-time best crime films ever, in my opinion. You look up crime in a movie dictionary, you're going to see a picture of Robert De Niro in a hockey mask holding an assault rifle.
I agree. I saw this when it came out in theaters in 1995. It was actually in between semesters, my first semester of college, and I'm pretty decent De Niro fan. Of course, like Pacino and some things. I actually like him when he goes real campy and big, this is perfect for me because he does some of that here. And but I like Michael Mann films and had known Michael Mann, of course, Miami Vice, and I knew Manhunter and lots of other stuff he had done. And I think I had actually seen the TV run of this, LA Takedown. We'll talk about that in a second. But I saw the advertisement for this and I said, oh, that looks cool. And I went to like a 9:35 showing of this thing. And I get out to 1 a.m. There's nobody there but me in the theater. And I'm like, man, I need somebody to talk this movie about. So I had to call friends of mine who were at home on Christmas vacation saying, look, you got to go watch this. We'll talk about it when you get back in the next semester. And so I've owned this in multiple formats through the years. I had the double VHS, and then I had the one VHS, and then finally a DVD, Blu-ray, and all that stuff. Now, Ron, we already teased that you've never seen this before, but just kind of, I know the stuff that you watch. You really like action movies and stuff. Tell us how you missed this one.
I think I was just in one of my many contrarian phases. I'm the person who didn't see The Godfather until, 6 months ago. And clear every so often a movie comes around where everyone says, oh, you have to watch it. It's amazing. It's one of the greatest, blah, blah, blah. And then I just dig my heels in. I just said, nope, not going to watch it. Yeah. I'm going to go watch American Ninja 4.
Well, I'll say this about this one. I don't remember people really talking about this one. It got critical acclaim. It made money, but it kind of came and went. And I think it has found its life on home video and in the television reruns of it and stuff, particularly like HBO and Showtime and things. I think people appreciate it more having seen other things Michael Mann's done since. And then, like you mentioned, Kurt, The Dark Knight definitely gave it another push. And I would argue, too, if Heat begat The Dark Knight, then Heat begat The Dark Knight begat most of Skyfall as well. So I think there's lots of tie-ins and tons of things. But, crime films in the 90s, guys, were not sophisticated like this. If you go back and watch like the Lethal Weapon films and Die Hard, it was always one man against the gang of terrorists or something, which was sort of a knockout of that Chuck Norris 80s Golden Globus stuff that you and I've talked about, Ron. So I mean, we were still in that, for lack of a better way of saying it, superhero mode of cop versus criminal, and to have a film that comes out that there's a real balance between the two was starkly different from anything else that was on the screen at the time.
It's funny that Kurt mentioned Batman and the Joker, because I kind of got paired, but in reverse, in that Pacino was almost the Joker figure, running around beating guys up, yelling about women's asses, and De Niro was almost the honorable like Batman, because he had his code. Like he didn't want Tom Sizemore to leave his wife and kids and go on that last job. He was going to take care of Val Kilmer's wife and so on and so forth. He was almost the honorable one with his secret double life.
All he needed was the voice.
And Pacino was aging police. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting way to look at it too. I think that's I don't know. There's lots of parallels we can make to this. It'll be fun to see it. Now, I have to ask you guys: have either of you seen what really amounts to the TV dry run of this called L.A. Takedown? It's actually on YouTube now.
This is one of those movies I keep hearing about. Every time I watch Heat, I think in the back of my mind, I gotta watch L.A. Takedown, but I just haven't managed to do it yet.
I did not get a chance to watch it. I did see the link. I watched like the opening credits of shirtless Michael Plank writhing around, and then it was like, maybe I shouldn't, watch this around people. Maybe I need to go somewhere.
Yeah, it's actually pretty tame, honestly. It's if you strip out the Van Zant sub story and most of the Shaharless story, you pretty well have what LA Takedown was. It was more about, can we get the the action right. And what's funny is Xander Berkeley has a bit part in Heat as the boyfriend of Al Pacino's wife, or hookup, or whatever you want to call him, is actually Waingro in LA Takedown, and he gives a terrible performance. It is worth watching just to watch him be awful on the screen. So he's bad, but they don't even stack up, not even close, and the ending's vastly different. But it's an interesting experiment. I would never recommend it to another person to watch, but if you like Heat, Again, the link's on YouTube. We'll put it on the page. If people want to watch it, knock yourself out. I'm fine with that. But, it's a neat experiment, though, because the thing is, this movie, we're coming up here at the end of 2015 here. We're releasing this in January, but this movie will be 20 years old at the end of this year. But the script is almost like 40 years old. That's the thing, is Michael Mann has had this idea running around in his head for a chunk of his life.
I think it clearly shows that this is something he's been working on for a long time, because it's both intricate and it's everything kind of ends up tying together. There's a lot of content to it, but it's all really well written, and the characters seem fairly well defined. At least our two major characters do.
What came to mind watching this movie is that Michael Mann has a respect for both sides of the law, as it turns out, and neither side is aside from maybe Waingro. No character in this movie is depicted as purely good or purely evil, and there isn't a specific, hero and villain. You could maybe say De Niro was the villain of this movie, but in a way, I mean, if you're on, like, I'm 100% on De Niro's side. I want him to succeed, and in that, Pacino is the antagonist to his happiness of getting away and living with his money. So, in a way, I see Pacino as a villain per se of this movie, But yeah, that that depiction of the hero of the cops and criminals as sort of equally matched too, that comes to mind. That neither side is stupid and neither side is smarter than the other. Every once in a while, one side gets a drop on the other, but really, it's like everyone in this movie is a professional, and that's something Michael Mann is all about. The characters in his films tend to be like, the best at what they do.
Kurt, I know where you are on Michael Mann films. Ron, where are you just on Michael Mann as in general?
I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm the Michael Mann super fan, but I mean I enjoy Manhunter, and I've enjoyed some of his work. I haven't gone out and sought out like everything that he's done, but I mean I dig Last of the Mohicans as much as the next Daniel Day-Lewis nerd. So,
and that's a good film, but just on its own right. Michael Mann's one of these guys that he kind of, in some ways, reminds me a little bit of Kubrick in the way that he just gets so involved with the subject of what he's doing, and you hit it right on the head, Ron, by saying this clearly was a project he had a lot of passion for. I sort of relate it to the way that Nolan was about Inception. That was an idea he had forever, and it took him, till he got to a level of success where he could produce what he wanted out of it. And Michael Mann has said that, he did, Heat or LA Takedown and sort of laid it on the side and said, okay, someday maybe I can come back to that, do something else with it. And then he went off and did, a lot of other things. And as he was looking for something else to do and what was going to be the next bid in his filmography after Last of the Mohicans, he said, you know what, I think I want to go back to that Heat script. There was a lot of that we cut out, and I want to look at that again. And so it brought us to what becomes this film. And so, Kurt, why don't you go ahead and give us a plot summary, and then we'll get into the discussion of the film.
Sure. Expert thief Neil McCauley, played by Robert De Niro, lives by one basic creed: be attached to nothing you can't walk away from in 30 seconds if you spot the heat coming around the corner. Well, the heat coming around the corner is ace LA detective Lieutenant Vincent Hanna, played by Al Pacino. After an armored car robbery gets unnecessarily violent, Hanna's squad is pitted in a cat-and-mouse game against McCauley's crew. Hanna, a man obsessed by his work, even at the cost of his personal life, thwarts one job by the crew and interrupts the getaway from a downtown bank robbery. A small battle ensues between the cops and the crew, where several of the criminals and cops are wounded or killed. Hanna and McCauley have a final face-off just beyond an airport landing strip, where Hanna gets the upper hand. McCauley is illuminated by the landing lights. Hanna shoots McCauley, and as he dies, the two men shake hands in a moment of respect.
And we kept that really short for a movie that's nearly 3 hours long, and I think that's because there's so much that happens in it. And what I want to do is kind of start with our two main characters, then talk about their crews, the adversaries, and then really the way to look at this film is to think about it in terms of the heists or the jobs that are built. There's really three of them, and then there's a coda at the end, which is I called the heat around the corner. So let's get into this and just talk about McCauley from the start. We've already described him in a couple different ways. He could either be the noble Batman, or if you want to look at him as the villain, he's the Joker or maybe Two-Face or something. But really, he is the quintessential ice water in his veins, totally professional archetype of the perfect criminal in a lot of ways. He's got it all going on. He's always 3 steps ahead, and by his own creed, there's nothing that keeps him tied down.
Oh, he's a fascinating character based on a real person. This whole movie is based on a real event of cops and robbers that happened in Chicago in the late 60s. And McCauley, he's just a great character. When I think of just professional characters that are just, great at what's great at being a president or a soldier, or in this case, veteran thief. He's an expert at everything when it comes to stealing anything and getting away without a trace. Lethal, more than willing to kill to get what he wants. He'll avoid it if he can, but if at the drop of a hat, if he sees that there's no other alternative, him and McCauley's crew have no problem just picking up a gun and shooting everyone that they can to get away. And he says, there's a great line where he says this to Amy Brenneman, it's like, I am alone, but I'm not lonely. I think he's lying to himself there. This is a guy who, his creed, which is actually a very good creed to have if you're a thief and, you're constantly in danger of being apprehended and so on, to have no attachments, no possessions, nothing, like a monk, where nothing nothing that you can care about walking away from. But deep down inside, I think he wants he wants attachments and so on. He wants to be with this woman, Amy Brenneman, and that's what brings him down in the end. And this definitely comes up every time I watch it is that this guy is so good at what he does. He's a brilliant thief. This guy clears, millions of dollars, but he does not seem to enjoy this lifestyle he's chosen, despite excelling at it.
Well, you know what? You hit on something there that I want to talk about for a sec is the idea of not being attached to anything, but we get several scenes where he's out with his crew or he's with them and their extended families, and you see him watching them, and it's not this moment of like, it's not jealousy so much or covetousness. He just watches it and is like, I wonder if I could do that. Like, I wonder what that would feel like to have somebody like that to come home to. And then he calls Amy Brenneman for the, proverbial booty call or whatever it is, and ultimately falls in love with her. And I mean, it really catches him in a corner in the end. That's part of his demise. But I think you hit on him pretty good there with that, Kurt.
It's very interesting to watch Macaulay kind of watch the dynamics of these relationships around him. Everybody in his crew seems to have, a wife or a girlfriend or kids or what have you. And he is the only one who's alone. And he, at some points to me, it seems like he's studying them, like he's trying to plot something. Like he's trying to put together he's got the manual on how to crack into a safe. He's got the manual on how to steal a car. Now he's looking for the manual on how to land a wife. And it's like he's watching them laugh and have fun, and he's sitting there like doing mental calculus. It's like, okay, so if I approach woman X at a bar, if I come from Y angle, I've got 5 minutes of drinking time before she finishes a red wine. It's very much like he can't turn it off. Like it's the constant calculus in his head.
That is an amazing observation. I've never thought about it like that before, but it's neat to sort of sit back and I'm thinking about scenes right now where I can see that happening in his eyes, and just give that to De Niro too for being able to pull that off. It's all in the way that his almost blank face just sort of scans around a room, even when he's not, you don't even realize what he's doing, but you watch this film multiple times, you realize every time Macaulay walks in a room, he looks at the corners of the room and he looks for the door. I noticed that this time watching it, and I was like, wow, it's a great little character moment.
And it's great because it never really reaches his face, but you can see it move. You can see it in like really subtle stuff that he's doing facially. It's really probably one of his greatest performances, and it's probably why he's since given up acting, basically.
Yeah, I think you wrote me a note earlier. You said this film was a murderer's row of good actors that had finally just given up. So, which was an interesting way of looking at it. But no, I think the Macaulay character is just fascinating to watch. The way he operates and to watch his arc throughout the film is great. But on the other side, you have Vincent Hanna, Al Pacino. And I mean, Al Pacino, to me, it's hard to compare the Pacino of like Dog Day Afternoon and The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 to the guy that, is in this, Sin of a Woman, and like Devil's Advocate. It's like very different people, the way that he acts. But he's I don't know, he said something in an interview once that he kind of made it his little actor's, inside thing that off screen that Hannah was doing shots of cocaine just to get up, for the day and stuff. And I could believe that, the way he's real manic in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, it definitely comes across that this guy, I mean, I wonder if it would have been interesting to actually do it, because that would have brought some, justification to his behavior, as opposed to some people just saying it's Al Pacino being over the top. But with that, I always had that in the back of my head that, maybe in unseen scenes he's doing cocaine, because it absolutely explains how he just explodes in so many scenes whenever he's talking to a criminal, like just all of a sudden he just literally bursts into song at one moment.
Yeah.
A great moment. Singing about, when I get to Phoenix and so on.
But I think if you cut to him, cut to a shot of him cleaning a mirror with his nose, it's gonna stray really far into Bad Lieutenant territory.
That's a good point.
And if you're gonna do that, just go ahead and bring Harvey Keitel in.
And about Pacino, I would say he absolutely is that manic, crazy Pacino that he was in the 90s. However, there's some of those over the top performances aren't so good. I would put Scarface in the bad performance category in terms of that's too over the top. This one, him in this movie, I think is probably my favorite explosive Pacino. Maybe this with Glengarry Glen Ross in terms of just and that explosive thing, because it just for some reason it just makes sense with his character, and he talks about how he just keeps all this angst and stuff bottled inside him because it just keeps him on the edge all the time where he needs to be, and that makes him great at his job.
And it's not. And it's sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that him being on the edge and so on, it makes him great at what he does, because he absolutely, like I was saying, no one in this movie is depicted as stupid. He's as good a cop as Macaulay is a thief. Like Hanna is extremely intelligent at great at what he does. Like when that armored car robbery, when he shows up on the scene, he knows every single thing to check out. Like this guy, one guy said the word slick. Look up. There's that camera. It's probably shut off. Check it anyway. Like, he absolutely is a brilliant detective and just dedicated to his job to the point of being obsessive. Like,
yeah.
Like he absolutely lets it. He has no problem letting it destroy his personal life. He just doesn't care. He loves being a cop, but I don't think this guy cares at all really about having a family despite being married.
Well, that's the thing about these two guys. That's what makes them interesting characters, is that it's about two men that are totally obsessed with their work. And even if they're on different sides of the law, they're obsessed with their work, and that has consequences on it.
I think Pacino chooses his spots better here than he does in other movies where he's explosive Pacino. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that probably has to do with Michael Mann having a pretty being, fairly well-known director by this point. Not Pacino could just roll over.
Right.
I mean, clearly he's got some kind of respect from his actors, because he's able to. It seems like he's got fairly good control over both of them, and he has a good innate sense of when to let Pacino be Pacino and when to kind of get him to dial it down some.
I'll say this too about Michael Mann. The thing that he helps his actors with here is that he gives supporting members of the cast that are at least somewhat interesting to follow. Like, that's the thing about LA Takedown. You don't care about anybody but Hanna and Macaulay in that, because the rest of the cops and the rest of the crew totally underdeveloped. You know nothing about them. You don't care when they die. You just move on. They're there just for set decoration and plot points. And here, they're not all totally fleshed out, but there's something for him to play off of. And I really think it's neat the way Hanna commands the other cops, because he only loses his stuff when he's with Michael T. Williams and when he's with Drucker. Like with the other guys, he's demonstrative and he's tough, but he never just goes out of his skull. But when he's with Drucker, it's like that's the one he's known the longest or whatever, and he'll be more of himself when he's with Drucker.
Yeah, Drucker's clearly like his partner.
Yeah.
And the other guys are just dudes on his squad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you're right. Having a good cast of interesting characters helps. And I think that you really do have a great collection of character actors here. I mean, you've got your Wes Studi. You've got Jamie Gumb himself, Ted Levine.
Yes.
I mean, clearly you don't want to freak out on that guy because he'll wear your skin.
Yeah. Does it wear anybody else out when you see him in other roles? I know he did Monk and all that stuff, and it's just weird to see him not going, put the lotion in the basket.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was weird that he wasn't Waingro, but
he could have been, yeah. So.
And I mean, you went through a list of 10 people, and you didn't even get half the noteworthy guys. I mean, you left out William Fichtner.
Yeah.
I mean, you left out
Henry Rollins is in this.
Tom Noonan, Henry Rollins, Hank Azaria.
Yeah. There's this cast is massive. I tried to keep the cast list as economical as possible, but it could have been the longest one we've ever had.
Big. And did you mention what's his name? Allstate. Dennis Haysbert?
I did not mention Dennis Haysbert. No, he's barely in this, but yeah, he does make an appearance at the end, and I'm like, it's President Palmer as a getaway driver.
And he even gets a tiny little character arc, and he's getting abused by none other than Harold and Maude himself, Bud Cort.
Yes, he is. I forgot Bud Cort was in this. Yeah. So
Bud Cort managing to play the most despicable character in a movie with a white supremacist serial killer.
Exactly, which is amazing. It's almost like he's the cousin of the guy that ran the Dixie Boy in Maximum Overdrive. If y'all have ever seen that, because it's the same kind of racket he's got going on. I mean, it's like, look, my brother-in-law down in Florida, North Carolina, ran this rig. I know how to do it. And so
that's a great connection. I would have never thought to connect Maximum Overdrive with Heat.
Well, there's the cocaine connection there too between Pacino's character and Stephen King too. So who knows? So,
good point.
So yeah, which King has admitted that, so we won't get sued. But anyway, it's
just a shame that you couldn't. They couldn't have also brought Michael Rooker over to be in this movie from L.A. Takedown.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's in L.A. Takedown, so he would have fit well as one of the other cops. I don't know why they couldn't get him. What I think is funny is they've got Danny Trejo and they just call him Trejo. They didn't even give him a name. It's just like, yeah, you're next, Con, anyway. You'll do. So the crews, we've kind of introduced them all there. Let's talk about the crews. Let's talk about Macaulay's crew. That all of them, and the one we haven't talked about, Val Kilmer, Chris Shiherlis. I'm going to say on record now, my two favorite Val Kilmer performances of all time are Tombstone and this, because he is wonderful in both of them, because he doesn't have to carry the thing by himself. And I think he is fantastic in this film.
Have you seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
I have, and that is a strong entry, yes, very much. But I will still hold Tombstone as Doc Holliday and this up in front of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah, he's great because he's absolutely a leading man kind of guy. I mean, he's a guy that
this was Batman Forever.
Exactly. This is the same year he's playing Batman, and he works great in a very for Val Kilmer very small role as just Neil's right hand man.
Well, he's Neil's Drucker. If that we're going to have the parallels, right? I mean, that's who he really is. Yeah.
It's weird that the third lead is basically an afterthought in every discussion of Heat. After I watched it, I went and looked at other people talking about Heat just to try to get a grasp on what people were saying, and Val Kilmer's name barely even comes up.
I think he's so, I don't know, anonymous in this role. He looks so different. I mean, they do everything with him. He's got that long hair, that weird scar. They do something to his left elbow, which apparently that's like a real Val Kilmer injury, but you never see that on any other shot of him. They're always covering it up with sleeves or whatever, and it gives that character like a humanity, and in the robberies and stuff, I mean, he's always setting the explosives, he's running the drills, he's the right hand man, like you say. I mean, he's the lieutenant, but you can almost lose him in this film because you don't get the stuff you get from Val Kilmer in this film. He plays so small compared to De Niro and Pacino. It's amazing to watch him be this gambling addict thief.
Yeah, it's a good character, and in the end, a very sad character. Like this is another guy who never gets to enjoy the riches that this guy collects because he's a gambling addict. He only gets the money to gamble and steals again to because he lost. He's got to pay off the debt. I think he absolutely might be next to Macaulay's ending has the saddest ending of any character who doesn't die. That he manages to fulfill that creed that Macaulay has of don't form any attachments, and if you do, be able to walk away. And he does the thing of he walks away. He sees his wife, and when she gives the signal that there's cops in the next room, he makes the decision to walk away, as painful as it is. And that's a great scene. Val Kilmer, that is some good acting. Just the expression, just dropping on his face of the realization of this is probably the last time I'm ever going to see her. I'm not going to see my son again. But that's the life I've chosen. This is the business we've chosen.
Yeah, exactly. No, I thought he was fantastic. Again, in this role, playing it so understated and, like you said, sad. He's definitely the tortured one of the group, and he's got the most problems, and he's also got the most to lose, you feel like. And of all the guys that, wouldn't be able to walk away, you figure it's probably not him, because, look, they give him the gorgeous wife, Ashley Judd, and her incredible cuteness here, and the cute kid, and, all this stuff. There's no way this guy will ever be able to walk away from that. And then when, it finally comes down to it, yeah, he does. He makes that that decision. So, but what about the little subplot here? And again, this is something that's unique to Heat, is Charlene's cheating on him behind his back, and Macaulay like finds out about it. And it's like, look, I know your husband's a jerk or whatever, but you're going to give me one more chance, and then I'll set you up on my own. And I love how even people that don't work for him, he still has like immense control over them.
I think, and I don't know if that's out of like a quote unquote love for Chris, as much as it is he knows this bank job's coming up and he needs his number 2 guy. So, go ahead and it's like, once we're done this job, you screw whoever you want. But for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to need him sharp.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny to me because it seems like Chris is going down the Macaulay, or Chris has a lot in common with Hannah, with Al Pacino's character, in that his love of the job, or in this case, his gambling, is what's putting his marriage in danger.
Mm-hmm.
And he could very easily end up becoming the criminal version of Al Pacino. And to me, the guy who seemed like he had the most to lose, and they make a point of mentioning it before the last job, so he's going to die, is Chirito, the Tom Sizemore character. Because I know at some point that you've got a wife and kids, and you're apparently a millionaire, and you've got your real estate. Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And he just is doing it for the thrill, rather than any real need for the money at this point. He's the one who was able to successfully both save his money and have a life and be good at the job.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. Outside of Saving Private Ryan, probably the most interesting thing Tom Sizemore's ever done, too. And I like the fact that Chirito is such a hound for action that he can't stay away from it. I mean, even the fact that he gives it up basically to Tone Loc in a great cameo, by the way, about, I got nothing going on. And Tone Loc's like, then I know this guy's got something going on, because he never talks like that. And, they basically figure them all out by identifying that guy's tattoos. And I mean, the police work is amazing. It's like real police work. It's, it's not just roll up and take a couple of photos and then all of a sudden, boom, we're in trial part 8. I mean, I love how they actually go through the police work of it here, but that's a neat observation on Chirito with Sizemore, because you're right. He's the one that's actually figured out how to balance life the best, but his big flaw is that he can't give up the action.
I also think that scene when Macaulay says, he's like, this is your last chance. Like, it's either we do this job or we walk our separate ways and never see each other again. And and Mike says, well, I'm down with you, whatever you want to do. And Macaulay says, no, you're on your own in this one. And there's like a long gap of silence where it's Mike. He's like I'm trying to think of a comparison. He's like the guys who like hang around a bully. Like, once the bully's gone, they don't they don't mean anything. That's what I think of when I think of Mike, is that without Neil, this guy doesn't know what to do. He needs a leader. This guy could not be Macaulay. He couldn't lead. He couldn't find a job and take on it all himself. He needs someone to give him orders, and so on. And he's a really good character. Yeah, Tom Sizemore, wonderful character actor. Such a shame that it's not his talent at all that's at all dragged him down to where he is now. It's literally his physical drug addiction that's ruined Tom Sizemore's career. But I hope he comes back, because he is outstanding. Watch True Romance, Natural Born Killers, Black Hawk Down. He's always good in all of his solid work. And I do like this character. I love it. The first scene he has, how dead serious this guy is. Like when Waingro keeps asking him questions, like, yeah, so like, how about you shut up for a second? Don't talk so much.
So, well, even before Waingro decides to get it on and shoot that guard or whatever, he's like, hey, Slick, you see that stuff running out of his ears? He can't hear nothing. So stop talking to him. And I liked it too. He gets the neatest introduction, because he's driving this truck and you have no idea what's going on. And like, Waingro runs up to the truck. He's like, hold on, who are you? He's going to check him out, So he's given responsibility is the idea. So it's a neat performance. You flip that with Hannah's crew, and I'll say this: I do think Macaulay's crew as a whole is better fleshed out than the Hanna crew, because really Drucker's the only other one we get to know. You have good actors like Ted Levine and Wes Studi in there, and I don't know Jerry Trimble from anything other than, I think this may be the only thing I've ever seen him in. But they're fine as cops and they do real cop work, but really Drucker's the only one of them that I feel like gets a lot to play off of.
I don't know if I'd call that a flaw as much as a missed opportunity. How Pacino's really the only cop that we get to really delve into their lives. And Drucker, we only know his name. We don't really get to know what his life is like, when he's not a cop. And I just think, Michael, man, I mean, with this much detail that he's putting in there, I would love it if he just went all the way out. Like, let's see what every one of these guys does at home. It would just bring so much more to the eventual ensuing shootout if we got to know Ted Levine and what he's like. So it would mean a lot more when he's eventually killed, because it kind of doesn't. He's kind of just another cop, more or less.
Yeah, he is just kind of there as another stand-in. But you need those guys because, again, the realism of it is there would never be one detective or even two detectives that would just be figuring all this out. They would have a team of guys working the phones, digging through files, doing stuff here, there, and yonder to accomplish this goal. And I don't know, I like that, the realistic factor of that.
Oh, yeah, and I've heard other people point this out, that I love that this avoids certain cliches of cop films, like Hanna is not a renegade. He's not. He's never dragged into the commissioner's office to be told about, hey, you haven't caught him yet. You're spending too much money. It's just whoever his boss is. They're just letting him get on with the work. The major crimes. They're just left alone. Apparently, they're given unlimited funds to do whatever they're doing. But yeah, they get on with it. They don't. Like I said, they're as good at being cops as Macaulay's guys are being thieves.
They needed. What was his name from Miami Vice, the TV show?
Edward James Olmos.
Yeah, they need Edward James Olmos or like Robert Doquey from RoboCop to come in and be like, "You're a good cop, but your methods are unorthodox. You're pushing it too far."
Well, they could have done that. Well, he almost does that anyway. If you've seen the movie version of Miami Vice, that almost feels like a pseudo sequel to Heat, with just different people in it. There's a big captain character in that too. But I don't know. I didn't really realize I was missing that character until watching it this time, and I thought, we don't ever see like his commanding officer talking to him. As a matter of fact, every time we see Pacino around other cops, he's the cop in charge, even to the SWAT commander that wants to go in heavy after they've screwed up the sting operation on the second robbery, and he's like, no, we're letting them go because I'm not going to let these guys walk on ridiculous nothing charges. We're going to get them for the real thing, or we're not going to get them at all. And I was like, man, that's neat to be that confident and in charge of his crew. But I agree with you guys. There's not much more to Hanna's crew, and the only way they could have ever fleshed that out, and I'll say this now, I don't know that this will be the end of Heat that we ever see. I could foresee a channel like FX or something doing a whale of a TV show of this, or maybe even HBO or Showtime. This would be a great serialized show if they ever wanted to, dig something up and do something a little different. But more on that later. I do want to talk about the two other adversaries here on the side before we get into the jobs and stuff, because you mentioned them a little bit ago, Ron. Roger Van Zant, William Fichtner, and Hugh Benny, his right-hand thug, Henry Rollins, who Van Zant, we'll learn, is basically like a money launderer among, being a legitimate businessman too. And he's the guy they rip off in the first of it. And Niels Fentz is like, hey, why don't you sell it back to the guy you stole it from? That way he gets what was his back and you make a little on the side too. And he decides, I'm just going to screw these guys and kill them. And he's also part of the reason Neil ultimately dies, because he won't let it go. It's like he's got to get revenge on the guy. And talk about just the perfect sleazy businessman. Maybe not since Miguel Ferrer in RoboCop did I see an executive I wanted to get shot faster than this guy.
I think they all work. Yeah, they all work for the same company.
OCP, everybody's there.
Yeah, William Fichtner's clearly working for OCP, and their money laundering
division.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I like Christopher Nolan. Is obviously a huge, biggest fan of. He clearly picked William Fichtner to be in the movie in the very first scene of The Dark Knight. I think that is 100% a wink to Heat fans. Like, hey, he's in Heat, pretty much playing the same character that he played. Yeah. And yeah, I do. And he's an interesting character. I love how tough he thinks he is when he finds out they're trying to tell me them. Oh, I'm going to kill the sons of bitches, and he's just carrying on with his work. And then the most poorly conceived assassination goes down, and that hitman has the worst day of anyone's life. He is killed about as thoroughly as anyone. He's crushed between two cars, then shot by a sniper, then shot by De Niro, and he's hit smashed with the car. I mean, that is DED, dead. I love when someone is killed like that, definitive.
He's the Emil of
yeah.
Yeah, they definitely killed him twice. I mean,
and of course, after that goes down, Van Sant is absolutely panicked. Next time we see him, he's unshaven, and he's literally got sheets and stuff on his couch in his office. This guy he's absolutely terrified because of one of maybe my favorite scene in the movie is when De Niro foils that assassination attempt. Then he calls him up and says, "I'm talking into an empty telephone." Because there is a dead man on the other end of this fucking line. That is a great De Niro moment. And then, of course, when that conversation ends, anyone on the other end would probably just sleep in their office and never leave the building. Because when that guy's after you, you panic.
First thing, he'd have to go home and change pants because he probably pooped in them. And then, he would have to go back and sleep at the office with Henry Rollins as his bodyguard. Now, this is funny to me because Henry Rollins is like rock and roll's political tough guy. Is that a good description of him, Ron?
Yeah, he's like a philosopher in the body of a cage fighter.
Yeah. So
he's very much a mental guy, and it's clear watching him in this movie that he is absolutely petrified to be around these famous people. Because that's the other thing that Henry Rollins is, if nothing else. He's kind of a fanboy. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a giant fanboy. And I know the whole time he's in this movie, he's freaking out that he's in this movie. Because I've listened to a lot of his spoken word and his comedy specials and read some of his books and all that stuff. I'm a big mark for Henry Rollins. And he is clearly, he knows he doesn't belong there. But I think that's what makes the character, it kind of works for me, not just because it's Henry Rollins, but because he looks like somebody's bodyguard who, like, he was a bouncer, and William Fichtner, he kicked William Fichtner out of a strip club one day, and he was like, "Hey, you want a job?"
Yeah. It doesn't feel like somebody he picked up off the streets and then, kind of civilized, because he's wearing like Armani suits, but with a T-shirt, which is very Henry Rollins. But the thing is I love how ultimately he flips on everybody too and lets them know what's going down, and how Waingo tried to feed him, feed Macaulay and these guys. And it's neat. They're neat side characters. Again, there's so much here in this film. You could spend days talking about all of them, but let's get into the heist, guys, and just talk about the way those go down and how both sides really react. And the opening one is incredibly exciting. It's the armored car heist, and we've sort of set up how it happens and things, but I don't know, what did you see, what did you like about the armored car heist? Because the thing that always struck me was how precise and timed and perfect everything seemed to be worked out. It's like these guys had drawn this up in Doc Brown's lab 10 times with model cars before they ever went and did it.
The actual jobs themselves, all of them. Gene Siskel loved this movie, and he pointed out, this is a movie where you watch this movie, you're going to get a good idea of how to actually do this stuff. Because Michael Mann is such an insane stickler for detail that there's no step in the process is skipped. Like, the movie opens with De Niro doing all this stuff, walking through a hospital just to steal an ambulance that'll just be the getaway car. Like, and yeah, I love how these guys are like military precision when it comes to this job. Like, they're not just like De Niro says to Pacino, "Do I look like some asshole with a Born to Lose tattoo? Holding up liquor stores?" It's like, no. This is like, these guys clearly put months into this one armored car job. Time, probably spend weeks timing out the response times to a 911 call, so that they know, like, listening to the police scanners. Okay, there's the call, so we got 3 minutes to get out of here. Mm-hmm. I love that kind of stuff. Like, and I love that they're specifically, they're not going in to steal money. They're stealing Barabon specifically. They specifically ignore the money that's there. And I love this job. And I love, we didn't talk about, I wouldn't say he's the best performance in the movie, but he's a very interesting character. This guy Waingro.
Yes.
This guy. I love the very first scene. The very first thing we see him do is walking up to some a little booth, and he says, "Hey, give me another free refill." And I love that. Reminds me of Steve Buscemi at the beginning of Reservoir Dogs, talking about not tipping. It's like you're about to clear maybe a couple $100,000 and you can't afford to get a large soda or something. I love that.
Yeah, I love how he talks so much game, like he's such a badass. And what we'll learn is, he's a psychotic because he murders a hooker later. And this guy's just bad news all the way. And you wonder how Macaulay and these guys ever got hooked up with this loser. Yeah, that's the thing that sticks out to me is that everybody is dead on precise except Waingro. I'm like, how did they ever get mixed up with this dude?
I think it has to be a case of maybe a deleted scene of they had another guy and he was either killed or arrested or something, because clearly he has never met any of these guys before. Like he has never met Tom Sizemore at all. So maybe he just got that job that day. Like, we need someone today. Can you do it? The same way Dennis Haysbert is recruited. All of a sudden, because that was certainly a bad call, because this guy, he wants to kill people. He wants to be he is that idiot with the Born to Lose tattoo who might as well be holding up liquor stores. Like, he just, the guy's not, the security guard is not saying a word, and he's like, just, holding a gun in his face. It's like, you want to fuck with me? and he shoots him for literally no reason. And that's the catalyst for the entire movie. Because other than that, the job is 100% successful. And they don't ever trace them to that armored car job per se. That is a 100% perfect crime, except for idiot Waingro.
I'm going to say they went with Waingro because Dennis Haysbert hadn't been paroled yet.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe they didn't know he had been paroled yet. That
might be it, because he seems to fit in more with the gang, because he seems, like he's got his stuff together. Yeah,
he's more cool and collected than Waingro. Waingro is a psychotic. That's just all there is to it.
Mr. Blonde is more calm and collected than Waingro.
This is true. And they could play each other's cousins or something for sure. So Kevin Gage, I don't know, interesting guy. I've seen him play the heavy a lot of times, and I think he's good at it. And he's good here because if we're going to, for lack of a better way of saying it, root for Macaulay's gang, at least as much as you want to root for criminals, you got to have one of them that you can sacrifice to the wolves. And he's definitely the bad guy of them. And we'll see how it plays down. I don't know. I thought all of it, again, the precision of it, the fact that they had the trucks wrecked, they wreck them right underneath that bridge, so there's not good vision. There's just some homeless people that are too drunk to really know what's going on. And for all we know, they've bought them liquor the day before, and so they're still stocked up. And they're down to clocks and seconds getting in and out of that thing. And even they've got the getaway down. They ring they string across the road the spikes, so when the first responders do show up, the cop cars wreck. And I was like, now that is, you talk about having everything planned and then blowing the bus up with the gasoline in the milk jar. I thought was just, again, shows you how much detail these guys put into the job.
There's one thing I don't like about it. It's a rare production editing error, is that when they get back into the getaway car after Waingro kills that guy, I don't think De Niro was angry enough. Mm-hmm. I really, really wish that De Niro killed him right then in the car or something, because I'm just like literally the lip syncing on the dialogue. He just says, "Oh, you dumb motherfucker," but you look at his lips, he's not saying that. That's the only moment in the movie that I'm just like, that didn't work for me.
You brought up something I was going to ask both of you. Why doesn't Neil just shoot him there and they just leave him with it? Is it because they might be able to trace it back to them in some way?
Maybe they might trace one of the hockey masks to, or something along those lines. Trace the gun. If they got the hold of the gun, that'd be one thing. But yeah, of course, what's great is that they don't kill him right there. But the plan is they take him for his last meal of that pie. I love Waingro saying, "You want some of this pie?" And De Niro does show up and does what I was hoping he would do in the ambulance, where he takes his head and he slams it into the table. That's a classic De Niro Goodfellas kind of thing.
Oh, Sizemore gets a great moment too, because the guy 2 booths down's looking at him and he just sort of leans out into the aisle like, "You got something to say?"
No, I do not. Goes back to his paper.
Just goes right back to his menu. Michael Mann is, in a lot of ways, is obsessed with the underbelly of L.A. and has always been good at showing it in unique ways, and he doesn't disappoint here. I feel like the same way. I really thought, we're going to see them execute this guy in the parking lot. Like, they've got the plastic in the trunk. They're ready to go sink that in Norman Bates's pond. I mean, this is over, you know. And Waingro gets away, slips away as a cop is, you know, turned around to pull somebody over for, you know, too much tinted windows or something, and they don't know what's going on, so they have to abort the kill at that moment. But I thought that was the neat thing. To back up off the criminals for a minute, let's look at the way the cops work that scene, though, because this is what's neat. Is always in these movies, right? The hero cop gets there first and figures everything out just by walking on the scene. Pacino doesn't even show up until it's dark already. They did that in the morning, and that's a very realistic crime scene. If you guys know anything about like the way crime scenes are processed and stuff, they rarely get out of them inside of a day. And the lead detective, he didn't even show up until late in the day.
Well, just because Pacino's in the lead detective doesn't mean that these guys are somehow less competent. Like, they, you know, each of the detectives has something to say about the cop, about the job. They're not just waiting for Pacino to lead the way. Of course, Pacino shows up and he gives them a few specific orders, but yeah, the cops they're all just, you know, like I keep saying, they're just all of them are professionals, good at what they do. However,
go ahead.
There's I have one complaint about the depiction of the police in this, is that they're wearing suits all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, even when they're literally crouched down wearing surveillance gear, they're wearing a jacket, suit, and tie. I'm just like, this calls for a hoodie or something. Like that strikes me as a Michael Mannism. It's like, you know, like everyone has to be dressed to the nines when they're going about their criminal activities, and that's just a minor complaint. But that's something that my dad hates about this movie, is that, you know, look, they're all wearing their suits. They think they're so cool. Drop dead. Yeah, that's an actual quote.
Well, they end up dropping dead at the end, so
yeah,
or most of them. So, but I was going to say it's the exact opposite of the detectives from Boondock Saints. Ted Levine wasn't like he was crushed to death by a huge friggin' guy or anything like that.
Yeah, they're. I think you hit on the word there, Kurt, is professional. They're all very professionals. As much as the criminals were professionals, and then one little thing got out of line, these cops are totally professional. I think Pacino gets some of his best lines here when he's sort of breaking it down for him. He's like, they shoot the guard here, kill that one, and kill that one, because once it turned into murder one for everybody, who cares? You know, but why leave a witness? And I love how he just sort of writes it off, and it's almost this sort of desensitized way of talking about things. But you'll even learn that that's part of his character later, is that, you know, as he says, you know, I've got dreams of people with these 8-ball hemorrhages in their head. And he's telling his wife, and you want me to come home and share all that with you? You know, so because somehow that makes all that okay. And you realize that, again, he's so obsessed with his job, and you get how obsessive he is because of the level of detail that he's able to surmise just by looking at the evidence in front of him and hearing what his team has collected throughout the day. It's a great moment of good police work there for Pacino. And all of that really leads us up to, when we get to meet our characters, we sort of see where they're going and stuff, and it's all leading up to the cat and mouse that's going on. And they get two jobs going at the same time, which I love this. They got, you know, multiple irons in the fire here. They get pitched the bank job, and they've already been setting up this platinum stealing thing out of a safe. You know, and I love the Tom Noonan character. Again, another Michael Mann vet, if you've seen Manhunter. I will say the superior performance of the Tooth Fairy, but that's another argument for another day, perhaps. But I love the Tom Noonan guy. Is, you know, he says, oh, you know, this is how you do it. You know the bank's got this kind of money in this day. You hit them here, you do this, and you go in the night before and you trick out the system. I already got the computers built for it. You know, I just know all this, and I love when De Niro asks him, how do you know all this stuff? He's like, oh, man, it's just floating out there. You know, you just got to know how to grab it. And I'm like, this is 1995. This is before we really knew what the internet even was. And this guy's figured this out. I loved that almost futuristic take that he had.
He's the dad of Angelina Jolie and Hackers.
There you go.
That's where that all comes from. I think it just kind of emphasizes that they are like the professionals, because you don't go into work and do one thing all day and to completion and then start the next task. You do things in bits and pieces. So while you're planning for the platinum in the safe job, why not go ahead and plan the bank job too? it's not gonna it's not gonna make it harder to pull off one robbery.
Yeah, because what's the take off the bank job? Isn't it like $11 million a piece or something like that when it all works out?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough for, as Macaulay says multiple times, if I have to go away for 3 or 4 years on it, it's worth it to me because it's the kind of money that you can, go be stupid on the rest of your life. You don't have to do this anymore. And what one wonders though, like, okay, if a guy as kind of screwed up as Tom Sizemore can apparently get his money put together right or whatever, and you know why Shaharless can't, why can't Macaulay like get his stuff squared away? Or is he just so again on the action that he's got to be doing it?
Well, when I think of Macaulay, I think of his not his apartment, his house.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful shot when he walks in and puts the gun and the keys on the glass table and just he literally has nothing in his house. And like Val Kilmer asked him, like, he sleeps inside, sleeping on the floor. He's like, when are you going to get some furniture? He's like, I want to get around to it, which just goes back to that thing of nothing you can't walk away from, to the point where he probably has a bed. He has maybe like one glass, a coffee mug, and a fridge with some coffee, and like he has just the bare minimum. It's just I just feel so bad for him. Just like, man, this guy is just like, he has the nicest house. There's nothing in it. Like, you just like, you want to see that he has a giant pool. He's driving a Lamborghini, whatever, but or something. But of course, it's also the smart thing that he's not drawing attention to himself at all. He's very inconspicuous. Like the way De Niro is, he's absolutely a guy that if you just saw him on the street, you wouldn't remember him. He's just another guy.
And he's definitely a guy who has a fridge full of nothing but condiments.
Yeah. Probably just I got the sense of like, this is a guy that eats out every meal for the one meal he eats a day, drinks coffee the rest of the day, and just sits around planning and stuff. And all he's got in his his room is enough clothes for probably a week. Throws them away after he's done with them every time, and he keeps 1,000 rounds of ammunition for that 45, and that's really about all he's got in the world is that, and that's all he needs to get where he wants to go, and that's the whole setup here. And the thing is the way the cops and all them ultimately arrive to all of this, they figured out that these guys are going to be involved in this kind of thing is, again, good work by the police to ultimately get to the point, because what they're going to do is their second job is we're going to rip off this platinum in this thing, and then we got to do our payoff from Van Zant. And Macaulay apparently has got enough money that he's fronting the cost for everything on the bank job himself. Like the rest of them aren't even pitching in on that. And he's not even asking for it back. It's just like, yeah, I'll take care of that, and then we could do the job. I found that to be amazing.
Well, it's not like you spend it all on furniture.
This is true. He's not shopping at the local, Lazy Boy outlet or even the IKEA, for goodness sake. So I mean, the guy literally has nothing in there. So the second heist is really the least action of all of them, because all that goes down is these guys, they go out to dinner or whatever, then they go to do the job, and the cops are waiting on them. And if it weren't for one SWAT guy that got bored and leaned up against the van and his gun made a noise, they'd have robbed the place and been caught right there, and that'd have been it. But that one thing, I love that I guess it's like an infrared camera or something like that, or night vision camera. You see that look of De Niro, and it's a great shot of just that face, and he's just giving that look at that van like something ain't right about that, and he calls it off. Like they're almost there, and he just calls it off.
Oh yeah, that is a killer shot. Like we didn't mention the use of the blue in this movie. Just is everywhere. Everything at night, like that shot of De Niro in his apartment with like the lights are off, just nothing but blue everywhere. Just beautiful. And even the infrared imagery is blue in this movie, and that is a great shot of just. That's the one time where De Niro maybe looks pure evil, is in that shot of just, that icy dark blue, just, scary looking guy. And I love how the crew responds to him. Like when Val Kilmer says, like they're drilling, and De Niro says, that's it, we're walking right now, we're leaving. And Kilmer's like, I'm right there. It's like, nope, we're walking right now. Kilmer doesn't, he just needs to be sure. He's like, we're definitely leaving? Okay, fine. Sets the drill down, everything down, and they walk away. They leave however many, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table just to walk away because of that idiot cop in the van. And that's one more thing. Like I really wanted to see Pacino scream at this guy, because this is 90s Pacino. I wanted him to have another Glengarry Glen Ross, just like with Kevin Spacey, just tear him to pieces and see this guy writing parking tickets the next day or something. Man, that guy's an idiot.
Well, you get that moment later on, though, because as the investigation continues on, Hannah's learning more about who these guys are, and he finally, we talked about the Tone Loc moment. He finally, tracks down that Charlene Shiherlis is having an affair with Hank Azaria, who's apparently like a real estate broker in Vegas, but he's a fugitive from Jersey for stealing cigarettes from Axel Foley or something. I don't know. But you get the scream moment there, right? Because that's when he does the whole, he's jerking the guy around, telling him, "What you going to do?" And the guy's like, "I can't believe I got messed up with her." And he's like, "She got a great ass," and he just loses his mind. And I have to think that is just Pacino being Pacino, because he goes in this whole like monologue about women's butts for like a minute and a half. And you got to wonder if Michael Mann was sitting behind the camera going, "This is like insane, but we have to keep this because it's perfect."
It's got to be, because it doesn't really fit in with the Hannah character we've seen thus far, and it is Pacino being Pacino. And I think Hank Azaria, he either said it on Inside the Actors Studio or something else, but he said the look on his face when, Pacino screamed because she's got a great ass. He said, Hank Azaria says, "The look on my face is the look of a man who has no clue what to do," because he's just sitting there, and Pacino does that, like, what the hell, what do I do? And he has that face the entire scene, just mouth open, just what do I say? And just just lets Pacino give that ridiculous monologue. And that's a great scene. That's Pacino. That may be the biggest I can recall Pacino being. Look, the bug eye on his face when he's screaming that.
It's rivaled by moments in later films, particularly like Devil's Advocate, when he goes off with Keanu Reeves. And Keanu also gives the performance of someone who doesn't know what to do, but that's probably because he really doesn't. So, and in that moment, but yeah, Pacino, it just is insane. But that's one of my favorite moments of him in the film, because it's so weird and so odd, but yet what I love is how Drucker and everybody reacts around him. Drucker's just standing back there with his hands in his pockets like, "Yeah, you going to jail, I don't care." And he's just like, he's seen it 100 times. And I don't know, again, that's why you get the camaraderie of those guys. Yeah, that's one thing I don't like, is how much of a dick Michael T. Williamson is to Hank Azaria, just because it's Hank Azaria. Yeah,
it's Hank Azaria. This is the guy from The Simpsons. This guy. I can't love Hank Azaria anymore. So to see him just be treated like a piece of shit by Michael T. Williamson, just like, would you lay off him, man? Like, the guy's.
When they're in the safe house, he's like, "Go fix that lady something to drink. You better get in that kitchen." It's like he's going to beat him up or something. But again, it lets you know what kind of a weasel Hank Azaria is supposed to be. I mean, you're not supposed to root for him at all. I mean, because he's a criminal too. That's the thing, is somebody needs to pull Charlene aside and go, "Look, you're making some poor choices about the men in your life."
Yeah.
Well, she likes a man in orange.
Clearly. So, but I don't know. I love how all that unfolds and stuff, and around that second robbery that gets botched. And then after that, I mean, Hannah finds out that his wife is having an affair too. And I love how he kind of loses his mind on her. And, you can come over here and screw my wife. You can eat my food, but you will not watch my television. And just picks that TV up. And Sandra Berkeley also gives the performance of someone who's not really sure what to do next, because it looks like Pacino's about to throw that 14-inch television at him. So, remember those things, man? Wow, we've come a long way in 20 years with TVs. But it was funny. But they have this whole conversation, going on, and this is juxtaposed to Macaulay meeting Amy Brenneman's character Edie, who basically, like, they meet in like a coffee shop or something, and then this romance just buds from there, and you see these two men going in opposite directions in their personal lives while their professional lives begin to collide.
I love the scene where they meet in that coffee shop house. She's just like, "Oh, what book? Like, what'd you get at the bookstore?" And he's immediately on the defensive. It's like, what do you care about what I am or what I'm reading or anything? Like, he's just. I think he's just. It's not just him being a dick. That's him being, suspicious of everyone. Everyone should be an undercover cop. Yeah. But then, he eventually says, "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude." And he develops a relationship, because it's just there's a lot of backstory we probably don't see with Macaulay. Like anytime he references prison, he says the reward's worth a stretch. But then when he's talking to Hannah, it's like, I'm not going back. Mm-hmm. So I think an unseen thing is some bad stuff happened to this guy when he was in prison. That's really motivating him to leave. Like this bank job, he's like, this is it. This is my last job. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going off to New Zealand to do, I don't know what the hell he's doing there in 1995, before Lord of the Rings, but.
And maybe he's financing it.
Yeah, man.
For that kind of dough. He's going to go set up Summit.
He's gonna go pump some money into Bad Taste.
there we go. But I don't know. I like again how those things are juxtaposed to each other, because it does lead up to that great scene. It's probably the scene that most people know, besides the big shootout that we'll get to in a little bit, is the scene where De Niro, or Pacino rather, pulls over De Niro's character and says, "Why don't we have a cup of coffee?" And this apparently really happened between the cop that was chasing the real Neil Macaulay, that they sat down and had a cup of coffee talking about how life might play out in the future. And Michael Mann says he took a lot of this from that. And the way this thing is shot, it's really one or two takes. I mean, he just let the guys go, and he had two cameras going and then put it together from there. But it is some of the best line readings you get out of two actors who are doing nothing but sitting across a table from each other. I mean, who knew something that simple would give you such great drama?
Oh, yeah. We didn't really stress on that much, but that is one of the, in terms of like film history, mm-hmm. that is one of the most important things about this movie. This is the first time De Niro and Pacino are in a movie together. They're both in The Godfather Part 2, but they don't share any scenes at all, because in different time periods. But this is the first time that they're in the same scene having dialogue with each other. And that alone, it gives that scene an aura that it's just bizarre. Like I've seen, like I can watch any other two actors act together. I can see Jack Nicholson with anyone. But to see De Niro and Pacino, the two Italian-American acting icons of just film history, to see them together. The scene where Pacino walks up to him, and when he said, the way he says, "How you doing?" Mm-hmm. What do you say? "I get you a cup of coffee." To me, I think it's intentionally winking at the audience. I'll be like we're about to have a scene with these two, because I just think it's just so, Pacino's being so funny, because it works great as, the cop and the criminal getting together to meet in the middle of the movie to talk. But it's just on another level, more importantly, it's De Niro and Pacino both acting their asses off mm-hmm. in that scene, talking about both of their dreams and aspirations, why they do what they do, and of course has an amazing ending to that scene, which is Pacino says, I mean, we've been face to face and so on, and if it comes to it, if I got to put you down, I won't like it, but if it's between you and some poor bastard whose wife you're going to make a widow, brother, you are going down. And De Niro says, much the same, mm-hmm. that they clearly have mutual respect for each other. These guys are two sides of the same coin. But they're both willing to kill each other to accomplish their goals.
I think it's clear that one confrontation is what basically sold the movie, mm-hmm. if not to the public, although probably to the public as well, but definitely to like the studios.
Oh yeah, I think like right away, like like Warner Brothers here is, we got De Niro and Pacino in the movie. It's like guaranteed, there's $50 million right there. Like, we don't even care what the movie's about, where this movie's going to be a success.
I think all he would have had to do is just shoot test footage of that and let them see it. I mean, again, it's not only a well-acted scene, it's incredibly well-written. There's not a wasted word between the two of them, and that's the economy of Michael Mann's filmmaking and writing. There's nothing in there is arbitrary. Even crazy stuff that he lets actors just sort of riff on and do. When he's writing the dialogue and in control of it, you see the thing. And what comes out of it, and what's really funny about it, is Pacino gets back to his team of cops, and they're like, "Hey, Macaulay's car's over here, but he ain't nowhere around it, man. We lost him." And he's like, I just had coffee with him an hour ago.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that, Macaulay somehow set it up where you guys come take my car and dump it because they've got me. And I love, again, just that moment. You realize that, he thought he had him, and dang it, he's one step behind him. I'll put another Dark Knight reference in here if I can, guys. To me, this scene, or the scene in Dark Knight that reminds me of this, it's more intense, but it's when you have Batman and Joker in the interrogation room together. And
Absolutely.
Gary Oldman walks out, and it's Christian Bale and Heath Ledger just chew the screen up together in those 3 or 4 minutes. And it's not as impactful maybe because this is a longer conversation and it's a little different. Those are superhero characters, but it's the same kind of weight. And I feel like if Christopher Nolan says he borrowed a lot from Heat in the cityscape of his film, he borrowed a lot from Heat in that moment too. And it's a good reference. I mean, I think it works.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a whole other discussion, but I just love in that scene. It works so good in that movie because it's such a surprise to see the superhero and the supervillain sitting down and talking to each other. You just don't see that in movies. Period. You don't except for maybe Xavier and Magneto talking to each other, but that's a whole other discussion. Dark Knight.
But do you see a lot of the cop and the criminal sitting down for a nice, calm discussion in movies?
No.
No, it's
I mean, you would have never seen Mr. Joshua and Martin Riggs sit down and have a couple beers and talk about life in Lethal Weapon. That just wouldn't have worked. Not even McAllister and what's Danny Glover's character today? Murtaugh. Not even McAllister and Murtaugh would have done that in that movie. I mean, this is what makes this one so different is that these two men can have this level of respect for each other, and they can even say, I'm not going to like it, but if I have to, I'm going to kill you at the end of this. And and that also lets you know as an audience, somebody's going to die at the end of this. Nobody's getting away. And it's just a matter of which one is Michael Mann going to pick, And we'll talk about that when we get there, but it's a bit. Now, let's talk about this bank job here, okay? Because this is the elaborate robbery scene of robbery scenes. I can't think of another film I've seen since that I don't think they're borrowing part of this, at least from it. The way all of it sets up. And what we find out is that Trejo has been compromised in some way. So he's out of the picture, and this is when they pick up Dennis Haysbert at the diner where he's working. And what I loved about him was that, you see him as somebody who's been paroled, and he's got his woman, and he's got his life together, and he's telling her, yeah, I'm cool, baby. It's going to be good. I'm going to go do this crappy job because this is just what I have to do. They've already set him up on that. And, Macaulay gets the call, and he's sitting in the diner with the guys going well, what are we going to do? And it's almost happenstance that he sees Dennis Haysbert there and go hey, remember that dude? Well, let's go ask him if he'll do the job with us.
Do you think anything is happenstance in this universe? I mean, do you think that that one nod of fate is basically what precipitated the whole downfall of the gang?
I don't know.
One time he doesn't plan something meticulously is the beginning of the end.
Yeah, you know what? That's an interesting point. I never thought about it like that before. What do you think, Kurt?
Yeah, that comes to mind as how realistic. I think it's because De Niro is I want to leave, and I'm leaving in a couple of days, so I gotta do this job today, as opposed to let's put it off a year. So that's a big mistake on his part because realistically, it's we just lost one of our 4 guys. We should probably call it off. But he's no, I need to do it right now. Puppy Kilmer's thinking the same thing. It's no, I need the money. So the reasons for doing the job become more personal as opposed to thoughtful. And that absolutely is one of the things that just brings it all crashing down, because that job, much like that first job, is it all goes according to plan until the very last second. Up until the bullets start flying, the job is the most successful crime committed on film.
Yeah, let's talk about the bank robbery. I've seen a lot of films where bank robbery is a part of the film, stuff like that, and never anything is nearly as meticulous as the way that they go about all this stuff. Just from everything they say. I mean, first they walk in and they immediately get everybody down, and I love how Macaulay sort of gets the crowd in the bank out of it. Look, I'm not stealing your money. Your money's insured. I'm here for the bank's money. Just don't be an idiot. Get out of the way and don't be a hero. This is not your day. And it takes him totally out of it. And I love how, too, he gets right to the point with the bank manager. It's where's the key to the safe? And he looks at him what? And he punches him right in the mouth. And it's that key. Oh, okay. And, he's no nonsense at all.
Oh, yeah. Once again, the professional aspect, they're not screaming. He doesn't swear. He doesn't, I don't even think they don't fire their guns in the bank. It's just, They're just very meticulously, Kilmer takes out the guard with that baton he's got, and everyone else just had their guns pointed. And yeah, I do like how De Niro becomes the master of ceremonies in this bank and giving the direction. If anyone's sick, like I like how he says, anyone's sick or has a heart condition, go lean against the wall, so we can keep an eye on you. I guess if someone's gonna have a heart attack, we can administer first aid or something. And I love if there's one unrealistic thing, it's I gotta wonder how heavy those bags of money are.
Yeah,
I've lifted cardboard boxes that are filled with a couple of books, and that's one of the heaviest things I've ever lifted, honestly. And so when you got a duffel bag filled with millions and millions of dollars, and they're carrying them around in a duffel bag, that's like that's the only thing, because they're carrying them around and going about the most intense shootouts that either of these guys have ever been through.
Well, yeah, the carrying it out, I mean, good grief. I don't know how big you'd have to be able to haul something like that.
Yeah.
It's probably, having carried boxes full of paper, like reams of paper, in a print shop environment, I can tell you that one of those duffel bags was probably pushing 150 to 200 pounds. Assuming it's assuming that's roughly the weight of 3 reams of paper, which it looked like it was about the same amount of paper, just cut into denominations. But that's very heavy. I mean, two paper boxes is a lot for one person, and it's kind of straining the limits of what you can carry healthily. And then to put it on your back in one of those awkward early 90s things before people learned about ergonomic design and
the strap that would cut right through you. Yeah.
Yeah, and clearly it looks uncomfortable because nobody looks really happy to be carrying those bags. Like, the actors don't look happy to be carrying those bags. I have no doubt they're just full of pounds and pounds of paper. And they're like, all right, Tom Sizemore, just heft this on one arm.
While you're holding a child and an automatic rifle. And you hold that rifle right. So because they put these guys through boot camp basically to learn how to hold the guns right and stuff. So no, the thing is it's a totally precise job, but as we'll find out, Waingro tips off Hugh Benny, Van Zant's guy, who tells the cops, hey, here's what they're doing. And the cops are able to get the drop on them at the bank. So just as they're about to walk out and get away with all of it, the cops are setting up. And I love how the last person walking out is Val Kilmer, and he's smiling, and all of a sudden he sees the cops and like immediately pulls the gun up and starts firing. Like, there's not even hesitation. Right
back to the professional thing. These guys are at a moment's notice. These guys are always ready to kill. And it takes literally it's cut so well because it's like clearly there's tons of people walking by, cars driving by, but he sees these two guys in suits holding guns on the other side of the road. It's like, this is like, in seeing them, he knows we're now going to have to shoot ourselves out of downtown Los Angeles in the broad daylight with all of the LAPD is descending on us, and we're about to have the fight of our lives here.
What I found amazing about this, and still do every time I watch it, is the sound design. Because that was the thing that Michael Mann realized. If you fire weapons like this in that kind of environment, that sound is going to go everywhere. It's going to be a zoo. You won't know if you're going left or right. And they captured that in such a great way. I mean, it's a mix of ADR and on-set sound that we get in the film. And I just think that is an amazing, film story about how they got the sound of this battle going down, because there's so little dialogue. It's all just guns going off, and that can be really campy and over the top, or it can be seem real processed or something, or it can seem very real. And I mean, I've fired a lot of different kinds of weapons, and some of the ones that we see on the film there, and that's what they sound like. And especially what they sound like in a real, bangy, noisy environment. And that's the thing that really gets me about this scene every time I see it, is just the noise and how these guys, the cop and the criminals, keep their composure in the midst of just all this hell raining down on them.
I think that's a good nod again to Michael Mann's obsessive perfectionism, because you're right, it does really capture the sound of like firing a weapon. and like a almost like a firing range. I think that's what keeps it from becoming cheesy, is because it doesn't sound like Rambo firing off from the hip.
Yeah.
It sounds threatening enough that it sounds like a real weapon. And I think that gives it an extra element of danger for us, the viewing audience, because, I know when I listened to it or when I watched the movie, I had my headphones on so I could get the good surround kind of feeling, not lose any of the noise to the background.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got noise canceling headphones, so they're so I'm extra into it. But when I heard those guns going off, I was instinctively looking around like somebody was firing off rounds in my backyard.
I mean, of all there's so many Oscars this movie should have been nominated for. The one it absolutely should have got and won is best sound editing and mixing. The sound, the gunshots in this movie. I think I can't think of another movie that has better, more impactful gunshot sounds in any movie. The guns are so loud. Again, this is a movie you pop in to test out your sound system. You put in the bank, you put in the shootout scene to see, how powerful can these speakers go, because they're just. I think he must have cranked up the volume even more so, because literally just listening to it, they're just louder, like just literally more decibel than other gunshots in any other movie. And it just makes it scarier.
Yeah, it does. It makes you realize they're in this big open environment. The other thing is that it's daylight. How many times does this kind of scene happen in the middle of the night? And you don't necessarily, you can't really follow everything because it's dark or whatever. This is in the broad daylight that all this goes down, and it's a pretty amazing fight. And in a gunfight like this would be, you would think that, oh, well, there's going to be like hundreds of dead people here now, because there's no way anybody could survive that. But if you're just shooting at random with a weapon, you're not going to hit anything. And I love how the bullets bounce off of everything around them. But when somebody leans in to really get the kill, they're doing it on purpose. And I mean, we see Bosco get killed here. Ted Levine gets shot like right in the neck. And that's the thing, is he's wearing a bulletproof vest. So I think it was Sizemore that got him. I mean, he had to be looking for that. Again, it's that intricate level of detail about the battle that makes this so much more, impactful to watch. It makes it more, dare I say, real.
Yeah, I need to think about other crime. Like, this has to be the biggest action scene in a crime film. I mean, this is like a scene out of a war movie happening in a cops and robbers movie. It's so massive. I keep forgetting every time I watch it. Like, the movie's kind of small, intricate, movie in smaller scale scenes. And this heist scene happens, and it's the biggest scene, maybe probably in any Michael Mann movie. Next to maybe this is the battle scenes in Last of the Mohicans. Because it is a proper war zone that they turn LA into. I can't imagine the amount of squibs and blanks they went through. I mean, they must have set a record or something, because like it's like they don't really fake anything. It's not like it's proper. Just we just locked off this part of downtown LA, and we're gonna fire millions and millions of rounds of ammo. That would have been a good day to be on set.
Not if you value your hearing.
Yeah, everybody would have had some extra protection in for sure.
It's kind of it does for movie gunfights what Bullitt did for movie car chases.
Oh, yeah.
Even down to the sound design. Like, when I first got my dad a Blu-ray player, one of the movies I knew he would want, because it's one of his favorite car chases of all time, is the Bullitt car chase scene. Mm-hmm. So we took the Blu-ray player to my uncle's house. He's got a big screen TV, and he's got the surround sound. And we put that on, and you may as well be riding shotgun with Steve McQueen, because of the way that that movie uses the sound of those engines and the squeal of the tires, and the cars sound like the real cars do. And this, I think, has a lot. I won't go so far as to say it owes something to Bullitt, but I think it's definitely an incredible technical achievement. Just from like a sound standpoint, and it's also from a pure like filmmaking standpoint. It's violence as not as ballet, but it's violence as parts moving in a grandfather clock.
Yeah, it's very
the way they all cover for each other, the way the cops cover for each other. They move from car to car. You know, you've got a guy shooting back, you've got a guy shooting front, you've got the third guy moving. It's just phenomenal blocking, number one. And it's, again, I mean, this crime scene was so good, it inspired real life criminals.
Yeah.
Like, this gave criminals ideas on how to better rob banks.
Yeah, that's how scary it is and that it got that. But in the melee, we already talked about Ted Levine gets shot and killed. One of the other guys gets shot. Val Kilmer gets shot in the shoulder, and we'll learn later, like, he fractures his collarbone and stuff. So he gets shot, and Neil's dragging him off the side, and Tom Sizemore gets separated from them, and Al Pacino's giving chase on him. And I love how this scene plays out, because it's, I don't know, it gives you, I guess if you needed a moment that you wanted Pacino to win, when Tom Sizemore picks up that little girl and is basically using her as human shield, then you're like, oh yeah, he's got to die. Like, you just knew he was going to get it, right? And when Hannah puts him down, it's a great little moment of slow-mo. It's like he sizes up, and right as he turns around, he pulls the trigger, and then he just pulls the gun down real slow, and then realizes, oh, I got to go in there and get that kid.
Well, and interesting, you say that he's using her as a human shield. I always looked at that as he's getting her out of the way. He's like, because he's a father. He's got, I think he has 2 daughters, and then he's like, he's getting her not so much to use as a shield, but to just, you know, get her out of the way. But whatever it is, it makes Pacino's decision in that way more impactful. At this, you know, he's going to, like, yeah, I'm going to take a shot when the guy has a kid in his arms. That's the kind of guy Pacino is. That adds to the character big time. However, it really makes some interesting, you know, future story. That kid's probably gonna have a lot of therapy.
I would imagine so.
She's gonna have to say the words, and then all of a sudden the guy I was looking at the brains flew out of the back of his head.
Yeah,
you know.
And then I look over and there's Al Pacino yelling at me about asses.
Thank goodness he didn't do anything like hoo-ah at the end of that. But he has that look on his face. I mean, we learned about that character earlier, that he was a Marine and all this stuff, you know. So he's got the training, and you see him put it into action, and it's like, wow, that was scary. You know, just how well he put the guy down, and then he runs in there and gets the kid, and that's it. And I mean, it's at that point, it's, you know, it's Macaulay and Shiherlis have gotten away somehow in all that melee, but I mean, there's wasted ammunition all over the road. There's injured people. There's a dead criminal. There's a dead cop. There's 2 dead criminals. Dennis Haysbert gets shot and crashes the getaway car. So talk about a crappy day on the job for him. I mean, you know, what a bad way to end. And I don't know. I thought all of that at the end of it. How do you top that? How do you get on top of that whole thing? And that, you know, the rest of this is really about, you know, the heat around the corner is what I called it. It's like, okay, is Macaulay going to be able to get out of here, or is Pacino going to be able to, or is Hannah going to be able to catch him? You know, it's the whole rest of the film, and I think it plays out really fast, and it's you know, because this could be the part where it's like, well, this is tacked on. It's almost like the 4th act, but it doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah, that's one thing when I talk about the first time I watched this movie. When that bank shootout is over, I was kind of ready for the movie to wrap up, because, like, well, like, I mean, after something like that, that's as big a climax in an action movie as I've seen. So it's going to start wrapping up, and there's another like hour and 10 minutes to go.
Yeah.
After that, and I think once you realize that, when you realize that, no, that's the middle of this movie, and for some reason, yeah, you said the last hour or so of this movie goes by so quickly, because I think it's because Macaulay is in much more danger now. He's on the run, because now it's all over the news. His face is all over the news. It's like, you know, this is the guy we're looking for, and so on. So it just makes, like, he's much more, you know, as you know, he's panicked, of, like, you know, because now if I didn't have to leave town before, now I got to get out of here within 24 hours. Otherwise, they're not even going to bother arresting me. They're probably going to shoot me when they find me, because, you know, because every one of that crew, they killed lots of cops in that shootout.
Yes.
And you also saw them. You also saw some innocent civilians also get shot.
Yep. So, I mean, there's lots of carnage at the end of that, and you're not just going to be able to walk away and get the first flight out. As a matter of fact, that he even calls, Nate the fence. We haven't even talked about John Voight, who has this small part, much better fake accent than Anaconda, wouldn't you say, Kurt? So
yeah, I'd have to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, for John Voight, and he tells him, you got to get me a new out because the one to get out to New Zealand ain't going to work now. I can't trust it after everything that's gone down. And Macaulay's the one that kind of puts it together, like, well, who wasn't there? It's got to be Trejo that gave us up. And that's what we find out is that's what's happened. And when he gets to Danny Trejo's place, I mean, talk about sad. He's just laying on the floor. He can't move. His face is beat to like a pulp. And his wife's on the bed dead, and they beat it out of him basically. And he tells him, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm the one that gave you up, and please don't leave me like this. And Macaulay just executes it.
Yeah, that's a tough scene because he says, I'm going to call you an ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, I don't want, like, he's like, she's gone. I don't want to live a second after this. So just go ahead and do it. And yeah, it's a great shot pulled back, from a wide shot we just see that great shot of the flash from inside the house, and we know it's done.
We also got to talk about the one thing that I think the film slows down for is Macaulay trying to convince Edie to go with him. And how does she come around to just going with this, you guys? I never understood that. Why she didn't just run.
I think that is a flaw in the screenplay of this movie, because when she finds out that, Macaulay's this bank robber who killed a lot of people that day, she realistically, walks out the door. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of where it ought to end. And I even watching it last night, I can't remember specifically what is it that makes her want to stay with this mass murderer that, has no problem killing police or shooting at innocent civilians. Like, it would have been better if she just flat out never came back, because it wouldn't have stopped De Niro from, doing what he has to do, carry on this revenge plot that he's got going.
I think it actually would have made the revenge plot make a little bit more sense, because now he would have nothing else but revenge to motivate him.
His idea of revenge is twofold. He's got to get Van Zandt. He wants him because we didn't talk about that, but they the worst assassination attempt of all time, I think you called it, Kurt, where they're supposed to pay him off at the old drive-in movie theater, and they try to shoot them all, and then of course Macaulay's crew blows them all away. He wants to go after Van Zandt for that, and he wants to take out Waingro, because that's the real problem here. That guy has screwed everything up from the armored car till this, and he's going to get it. And as an audience, I think we're supposed to root for that to happen even more than Van Zandt, because Waingro he's a serial murderer. He killed a hooker. I don't know how Benson Hanna's investigating that while he's investigating all this other crap too. I mean, it's like, that's one job he didn't need, but he has to do that. He's killing people in bars. I mean, this is a bad dude, so we want him dead.
Yeah, if there is you can say that there's a pure antagonist, it would be probably Waingro. I think we've established that. As awesome as I think the actor is, and I think that performance is, because he's definitely one of the non-Pacino, non-De Niro highlights of the film.
Oh yeah,
at least to me. I could make the argument that the ultimate villain wasn't really Waingro, but it was kind of just greed. Tom Sizemore goes along because he needs the adrenaline rush. Mm-hmm. If they didn't try to double cross William Fichtner, that, as much as anything else, is kind of the point where everything starts to go wrong for the crew. Because if they had just taken the bearer bonds and had made the offer, I don't think they would have gotten tangled up with him. Henry Rollins wouldn't have rolled over on him. And it wouldn't have started the whole downward spiral of the thing, of the crew. So I think you could say that I think I would make the argument that greed was the ultimate is the movie's one through line.
Very interesting.
Yeah, greed and this code of honor that these guys have definitely brings them down, because it's to me it's something that becomes a bit of a sad moment when you know what's going to happen the second time you watch the movie, when De Niro's he's home free essentially, Nate says plane's ready to go, you're home free, I'll see you see you in the next life or whatever, and he's ready to go, and De Niro takes an exit. He's like, nah, I got one more thing to take care of. And it's like he has no real reason. It's 100% malice and rage. It's like I have everything in my body. I have to kill this guy. I can't live in the same world as Waingro after what this guy's done to me and mine.
Right.
And that's what brings him down, because he would have made it to New Zealand, that night had he not been so driven by revenge.
Exactly. So he traces Waingro down to the hotel that the cops have got him hid away in, that they're watching the door. And now, if you haven't seen L.A. Takedown, this is the climax of the film, which I think is, I'm glad it goes on beyond this, but he knocks out the cop. He's able to get in the door, and I love how he puts down Waingro. He knocks him down on the couch, and he says, "Look at me. I want you to look at me." It's like, I want you to see me when I shoot you in the chest. And I thought, well, that is just, this is a personal thing, and this is going to be his undoing because he's taking this so personally.
Yeah, and it's such a brutal kill. The way when he gets shot, just like all of a sudden, just like the air is just pushed out. He's like, it's like that's a painful looking gunshot.
Yeah.
And it's as brutal, and at the same time it is satisfying. Just like, finally he killed that guy.
Yeah, you wanted that guy dead. Like we said, I mean, he definitely had to go, and he put him out pretty violently.
I love how Macaulay deals with the cops that try to get him right after he kills Waingro. Like, literally the specific movie does. It's like, he's literally got his hands, behind his back or whatever. He starts backing up. And when he hears that the cop, his back has touched the wall, he knows, I can get the drop on him. And he turns around and smashes him with a flashlight and beats his ass. And it's like, that's a great, that's like a James Bond move to me. Of like listening for the sound. Okay, he's touched the wall. Now I can get him.
Yeah, he's got him dead to rights at that point, and he runs out of the place. And this is the moment. He's got Edie in the car, but he sees Hannah coming out, and literally the heat coming around the corner, and he runs. And I was like, so he did walk away from her just too late. Yeah,
that's a great just moment in this movie, is that like they take like time slows down in that moment where he's like, he sees Hannah, he sees Edie. It's like he's doing the math in his head. It's like, I'm not gonna make it. If I got in the car, he'd shoot at the car. I'm dead. So he's like, I'm gonna walk away from this woman to avoid prison, to get away. Like he does that thing he's always talking about, and we could see this is what it looks like to walk away from everything. He's done all of this stuff to be with this woman, and it's just like in a quick flash, nope, I completely changed my mind 100% about being with this woman. It's a sad moment.
Yeah, we've already seen Val Kilmer do this with Ashley Judd at that point too, because he's walked away and has gotten out and gone away, and so now it's to see De Niro do it here. It's the culmination, but it's too late because Hannah's hot on his tail.
But does he walk away from Edie to get away from prison, or does he walk away from Edie to keep her from going down with him?
See, I think you hit on it there, Ron. I actually think he walks away to protect her because, like Kurt said, well, if I get in this car and get in a shootout with this guy, she's probably going to get killed and get implicated in stuff that she got no business being in. This ain't hers, and so he does the honorable thing. If there's honor among thieves here, and he walks away from her to protect her.
And I think that's kind of the same thing that Chris does with his wife. Mm-hmm. He knows that the cops have her, and I think she knows that if they have it together enough to have a signal, this is I'll do this thing with my hand when the police are here with me. Mm-hmm. They've got it together enough that they've got a country with a non-extradition treaty to meet up in. I mean, they're going to Venezuela somehow.
I had never thought about that. Did they ever meet up again? That's an interesting point.
Well, just the movie is at that point. The movie couldn't be. It's screaming sad, and the look on Val Kilmer's face doesn't say, "I'll see you when I see you." It's like, "I'm never seeing you again." And who knows? Who knows what happens to Chris's character, whether he's killed by the people he owes money to or something. But like, this guy does not have a happy ending in any way.
I know it's an interesting point and something to think about here, because it does lead us to one of the neatest scenes in the film, and what a great way to do a chase you through the maze. It's almost like a nod to The Shining again here with what Michael Mann is doing. And I love how these two are chasing each other around the fields that line up near runways, and they have to duck when the light, the planes come over and the landing lights hit, so that they can stay out of each other's shadows. And that ultimately it's when Macaulay tries to turn around the corner and Pacino sees the shadow. I mean, it's almost like instinct. He just wheels around and fires, and you didn't even really see what he's shooting at. Almost, it's like Clarice in The End of the Silence of the Lambs. All she hears is the gun cock, and she just turns around and just lays rounds out. And I thought that was a great way to end it. And if you're going to have a high noon standoff in this, if this is a modern Western, it can't end any other way, right? It's got to be something like this.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about this during the shootout scene too. Is that the way Michael Mann's constructed this movie, of how you don't really hate any character except for Waingro. So in that shootout, it plays on your emotions a bit. You're not sure who you want to win on this. Like literally, like you got the devil angel on your shoulder. Like the angel's saying the cops should beat the criminals, but the devil's saying they worked real hard to get that money. That you want them to succeed. And same thing happens in that shootout where you're just like, I'm not 100% certain who, because what this scene, this movie ends with one of them dying, and I'm just not sure who I want to make it, because both of them are such great, you can respect what these guys do. So it's just a matter. It could have easily been any of them. They're both as good a shot as the other, and it just happened to be Hannah got the drop on him first, and but it could have been either, because I'm still not sure who I want to win on that.
After the kind of wonderfully choreographed gunfights in the shootout, the shootout into downtown LA, I really liked that the final death of the film wasn't, high noon. It wasn't, it wasn't, two guys standing in a dusty street. One of them draws slightly faster than the other one. I liked that it was just kind of an instinctual, he shot him before he, basically before he realized who it was. Mm-hmm. And he was just, anybody coming around that corner was probably going to get shot.
Yeah, in that moment. And what's even better is that, De Niro's shot in the chest and is laying there dying, and his last line is, "I told you I was never going back." And then they do that whole hand grasp thing, and I was like, it's almost like he's saying, "We just hold my hand as I slip off into the darkness here." And Pacino's like, "Yeah, okay." And he just looks off into the distance, and it's like, wow. The music, everything in that scene just is perfect for me. It's one of the best endings of a film I think he could have ever concocted. It's stunning.
Oh yeah, for a movie that's very much a guys kind of movie, very macho movie. It ends with a very touching ending, and I can't recall another crime film that ends on a note like that. Like Collateral doesn't end like that. Thief has a very kind of badass kind of ending, but this one ends with it ends on 100% a sad note, because we've just seen all the stuff De Niro's gone through, and to see him die, it probably would have been just as sad if Pacino died too. But it's just a very sad moment, and just a great final shot of we see the back of Pacino and the front of De Niro dying as they hold hands. Great shot.
Yeah, as the plane rides over one last time. So, just a real stunning end to what had been it's a 3-hour film, and it doesn't feel like it. So I think we're at the point of the podcast, guys, where it's time to give final thoughts, recommendations, and popcorn ratings. So what are yours for Heat, Kurt?
Well, as I've said, this is a film I didn't like the first time, but upon multiple repeat viewings, I just love this movie. This is an all-time favorite for me in terms of favorite cop films. It's this is up there. This is in that top 5, French Connection, LA Confidential, The Departed, Heat, and just as a movie. As a Michael Mann fan, this is sort of the definitive Michael Mann movie. My personal favorite is The Insider, which I cannot recommend enough. It's totally different from Heat, but got to watch The Insider. Anyone listening to this, but anyway, but Heat. As a fan of crime films, this one really stands out because it's such an epic, not just in terms of length, but in terms of we see all sides of the world of crime and the law. And of course, the TV show that it brings to mind for me, that I'm such a huge fan of, is The Wire. And one of my favorite things about that show is it's that same sort of dynamic of we see everything the cops do and everything the criminals do, and you work it out. You work it out on whose side you're on, who you want to succeed. And that's what he does. It kind of plays with your morality in that way. Like you're not sure whose side should I be on, because it's not just Pacino's the cop, I'll be with the cop, because De Niro's not an evil guy, Pacino's not necessarily the nicest guy, and so on. Anyway, but the action is superb. That shootout is insane. All of the sound effects are amazing. It's so tense. The detail of the crimes is so meticulous. It's like a semi-documentary on how to commit crimes, like Siskel said. And overall, it's a masterpiece. Looking back at 1995, I think if this movie came out today, it would be nominated for Best Picture, Screenplay, Director, and I just don't know how it completely slipped under the award altogether. And that's a real shame, because this is one of the best movies ever made. And I give it nothing less than an extra large popcorn.
Ron?
Yeah, I clearly have to go with the extra large popcorn. I mean, typically, no matter what movie I watch, I will sit and take a ton of notes. Anytime I review anything for Den of Geek, anytime I appear on this podcast, I've got like 3 or 4 pages of notes. And about an hour into the movie, I just quietly closed my document and just completely ignored my note-taking responsibilities to just enjoy it. And, I spent the last hour needing to get up and go pee, and I just couldn't stop. I just kept going, kept pushing, and I didn't wet the bed, thankfully. So that's one good thing. But yes, extra large popcorn. It definitely is one of those movies that really lives up to the hype. It's clearly probably it's weird to say this for 2 really distinguished, really decorated actors, but it's kind of the high watermark. It's like that last great season for both Pacino and De Niro. And they're surrounded by an all-star cast of, great character actors who are really at the top of their game at that point. So it's definitely extra large popcorn for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Kurt. I kind of knew you liked this because we had talked about it offline and stuff, but I love talking about this film because I think that's one of the hallmarks of it, is that much like a film like The Dark Knight and Inception, and there are several others I could think, but Godfather goes in there too, Jaws. I can talk about this film incessantly with people that like all kinds of different stuff. I've never introduced this to someone and they didn't like it. I don't know if you like film and if you like drama, you like action, you like crime, you like even a little bit of horror, you like funny stuff. I think you would dig this film because there's something for you here, and it's just well balanced. And Kurt, I think I can't give it any more praise than what you said. If this was nominated today, it would be a crying shame, and people would gnash in the streets, about it, that it didn't get nominated. This film kind of quietly came and went and just sort of blew by award season. And looking back, it's one of those, that could be a topic someday maybe for the Fabish Factors. Years the Academy just totally missed, whiffed on something. And this is one that they whiffed on because one of my favorite films too. Definitely always in my top 10. And it's my favorite Michael Mann film. And I love Thief, and I like The Insider, and Ali, and I even like Public Enemies, and Manhunter's a real special one for me. But this one is my favorite Michael Mann. I everything else I watch of his, I judge against this because I think it's his passion project, clearly. And he did a masterful job with it, and everybody here involved with it. great work all around. So extra large popcorn from me too. This is a first, by the way, that all three hosts of a show have given an extra large popcorn to a film. Like even back like Dark Knight Rises and stuff. Yeah, we've had like 3 larges, we've had an extra large and 2 larges, but we've never all just effusively praised something the way that we have this film. But I do think even so, we all went into this. I knew I was going to like it. Kurt, I kind of knew you were going to like it. Had a feeling Ron might like it too. I thought, we're probably going to, talk too much good stuff about this movie, but it's going to be worth it because, again, there's just so much to talk about here. And gosh, guys, we left an hour of it on the table. I mean, there's so much stuff we didn't even get into, but yeah, maybe for another day. But folks, if you have enjoyed this podcast, we really appreciate your support, and thank you again for another great year with Continuous Play. Can't think of a better way to kick off 2015 than to come out of the gate with something like Heat. And I'm really excited about that and what we've got coming up. Kurt, Ron, thanks for joining me on this show.
It's all downhill from here, Jay.
For you and I, it literally is, my friend. We'll talk about that in a second. But Kurt, tell folks a little bit about the Fabish Factor.
Well, the Fabish Factor is a podcast where we get into all kinds of topics regarding film and television. We covered all of Game of Thrones seasons 1, 2, and 3. Going to get to season 4 at some point. Maybe by the time you're listening to it, it's already out there. And we also cover just sort of random films. We covered Batman Begins, the Alien films, and we covered certain years of film. We did 1986 with Franco. Covered 2011 and 12 with Nick, and 1995 with Cody Lang, where we both got pretty in depth into Heat, which both ended up on our top 10 films of that year. It was my number 3, that was a pretty good year for crime films. Anyway, but the Fabish Factor, and also you can find us on iTunes for the podcast, and on Facebook, where we get into very much the same discussions, just on with writing and text as opposed to through a microphone.
And snarky pictures. How dare we forget those? So,
yeah,
you'll find several of the Continuous Play hosts hanging out on the Fabish Factor Facebook page, so invite folks to go there. Ron, tell folks how they can find your writing on the internet.
Yes, you can find me. I am the American correspondent for denofgeek.com. That's the UK version, not the US version. And you can find me just about every 5 days a week at popfi.com, POPFI, where I talk about weird things in the news and movie trailers, things that just entertain me. Okay, you'll find me talking about Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Falling Skies, Teen Wolf, The Following, basically everything either really good or really terrible on television.
It's a rogues gallery for sure.
Oh, American Horror Story. That's it. Good and terrible at the same time.
Yes, it is. And almost the same show sometimes. But, well, of course, folks, you can find all of my stuff at continuousplaypodcast.com. That's where you can link to the Fabish Factor, to Film Strip, this podcast, and all the many kinds of things we reviewed. I mean, good grief. Last year, Kurt, you and I did the Star Wars films, probably our most epic series of all time. And Ron, we introduced you on the show by doing, Tales from the Crypt and American Ninja movies. And so I've done, reviews of Alien. I've done wrestling movies with Brian, all kinds of stuff there. Romantic comedies with Anna, the Harry Potter movies. We got all kinds of stuff at Film Strip. We don't tie ourselves to one genre. We've pretty much done everything. We even did a documentary about the guy that invented the Jelly Belly jelly bean once, y'all. So I mean, a little bit of everything there at Film Strip. And of course, the 7 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer retrospective, The Art of Slaying, also available at continuousplaypodcast.com. You can hook up with us on our Facebook page and Twitter accounts. And, of course, leave us a review on iTunes. Let us know what you think of the show. We always appreciate your support. And 2015 is going to be an interesting year here on Film Strip. I just want to run down some of the stuff we got planned coming up for you, the listener, here throughout this year. I mean, we're doing, maybe one of the best films of all time here. And then Ron and I are going to do possibly the 2 worst films of all time, The Room and After Last Season. We'll talk about those soon. We've got, some more Chuck Norris action coming up. Brian and I are going to dive in and do Back to the Future, which is a big one for him. Really excited about that. Ron, in the spring and the summer, you and I are going to do some heavy action. We're going to do the 5 Dirty Harry films. And then we're going to do the Mad Max retrospective leading up to Mad Max Fury Road that comes out at the end of May.
Very exciting. Very, very exciting about that.
Yeah, that's one of your big ones, I know. And of course, so much more stuff coming around. And who knows what we'll come up with for, Halloween time next time. And Kurt, I know we'll have you on more shows, but definitely next December, you and I will be doing Star Wars 7 because by then it'll be out. So, but yeah, so lots of stuff planned for the coming year, folks. We appreciate your support as always. So until next time, for Kurt and Ron, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Please leave us a positive review on iTunes, like our Facebook page, and visit our website, continuousplaypodcast.com/movies, for more episodes. All content used or discussed in these podcast episodes is the property of its respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504, C2, Title 17.
I told you I'm never going back.